Okay, we're in Act 5, Scene 1. This is a scene where Lady Macbeth is going to show a very strong depth of character in a different, very unusual way. If you have your books, you need to read along with me because we're actually going to reread. I know we read it in class, but we're going to reread this scene as I take you through Act 5, Scene 1. This takes place in Dunsinane. It's the castle, of course, of the king of Macbeth and Lady Macbeth. A doctor comes in, and a waiting woman, a gentlewoman, one of Lady Macbeth's ladies-in-waitings. And these two characters have a conversation. What we glean from this conversation is important. The doctor says, "I have 2 nights watched with you, but can perceive no truth in your report. When was it she last walked?" That very opening line tells us that this has happened before, and that Lady Macbeth has been sleepwalking, and the gentlewoman has gone to a doctor, someone that she would trust, and told him about this, presumably seeking help for Lady Macbeth. The gentlewoman says, since His Majesty went out into the field, I've seen her rise from her bed, throw her nightgown upon her, unlock her closet, take forth paper, fold it, write upon it, read it, afterwards seal it, and again return to bed, yet all this while in a most fast sleep. So I want you to think about if you've ever known anybody who's a sleepwalker, or if you have been a sleepwalker, and how odd it is. Even to us today in 2011, almost 2012, sleepwalking is something that's very odd behavior. Think what it was like back in that day. This is the year 10,050-ish. And even when Shakespeare wrote this in 1606, sleepwalking was a very strange infirmity. So what she's describing is that what she's seen Lady Macbeth do in her sleep is to get up, get paper, write. Now, when do we remember that before from Lady Macbeth? That's not necessarily a text echo, it's an action echo. What do we remember that Lady Macbeth has had a letter before? Do you remember back to Act 1 where she received the letter from Macbeth? And isn't it that letter that really got the entire thing started? And so we see her reenacting in her sleep this letter. The doctor says it is a great perturbation in nature. It's perturbing. It's disturbing. It's a great disturbance in nature. Now, we've talked about going against one's nature. Remember, Macbeth has gone against his nature. So now we're seeing that this is very unnatural, the doctor is saying. To receive at once the benefit of sleep and do the effects of watching, it's very odd to give the appearance of being awake, but actually be asleep. In this slumbery agitation, besides her walking and other actual performances, what at any time have you heard her say? The gentlewoman says, that, sir, which I cannot report after her. I can't tell you what she said. I can't go there, she says. The doctor says, well, you may to me, and 'tis most meet you should. Neither to you nor anyone, the gentlewoman says, having no witness to confirm my speech. So, in other words, she must have said something so profoundly disturbing that even her lady-in-waiting is not going to say it because there was not a witness when she said it. Now, keep in mind what kind of situation they're living in. Even as a member of as a servant in the household of the king and queen, people are dying left and right. People who get too close to the Macbeths disappear. And so to say something that is going to implicate Lady Macbeth is something that this lady would never do. And then here comes Lady Macbeth. A taper is a candle. She's holding a candle. And the gentlewoman continues, says, shh, lo, here she comes. This is her very guise. This is the way she looks every night. And upon my life, she's fast asleep. Observe her. Stand close. Now watch. Here she comes. You're going to see it for yourself, she's telling the doctor. The doctor says, how came she by that light? Why is she holding that light? Why, it stood by her. She has light by her continually. 'Tis her command. Now think about this in terms of the motif we've been watching with light and dark. And so remember, she's the one who started it when she said, come, thick night, and cover me over with this sin that I'm getting ready to commit. We heard Macbeth himself, come, thick night, and cover over. And so there's been a lot of dark. They've been getting deeper and deeper and deeper into the dark. But all of a sudden now Lady Macbeth commands that there be light beside her all the time. What do you think she's afraid of? Why is she afraid of the dark? The doctor says, you see, her eyes are open, and this is true. If you've seen someone who's a sleepwalker, or you're a sleepwalker, you know that your sense is totally there. Your eyes are open. You can speak to somebody. You can recognize somebody's presence. But a part of the brain is just not functioning. If you've never actually been a sleepwalker or seen it, maybe you've taken a nap and you knew that you were trying to wake up, but you couldn't actually wake up. You were somewhere between sleep and a wakeful state. And that's somewhat like the sleepwalking state. The gentlewoman says, but their sense is shut. So she's saying that she doesn't know what she's doing. The doctor, what is it she does now? Look how she rubs her hands. So this is, she's rubbing her hands. What does that remind you of? Watch as Lady Macbeth goes through this scene. She's going to reenact everything that we've seen so far. So what would she be rubbing off of her hands? You're right, the blood. The blood from Duncan's murder. It is an accustomed action with her to seem thus washing her hands. I've known her to continue this for a quarter of an hour. And then now she speaks. So she says, I've seen her do this for 15 minutes. Well, I want to challenge you right now as you're watching this tape. Take your hands and rub like this. Now, if you were to do that for 15 minutes, you would rub your hands raw. It would hurt. And this is what she's been doing. And she's doing this. And she says to begin with, yet here's a spot. Notice that. A spot of what? Of course it's going to be a spot of blood. The doctor says, hark, she speaks. I will set down what comes from her to satisfy my remembrance the more strongly. Lady Macbeth, this very, very famous line that she says, out damned spot. Now, when she's saying this, she's not cursing. She's not saying out damn spot. She is saying damned spot. Do you see that? That means this is a spot of damnation. This is a spot that's going to cause her eternal damnation is what she's concerned about. At this point, what's coming out and manifesting in her sleep is a concern for her immortal soul, for what happens after she dies. So this spot of blood on her hands is one that represents to her what's going to happen in her death. Now watch how she goes through and reenacts. Now this is why it would be very interesting for somebody to hear her, because what they hear her say is a confession, and it's not just one confession, it's several. Watch where she goes in all of this. Out damned spot, out I say. 1, 2, bells, 1, 2, guards, 1, 2. Why then, 'tis time to do it. Catch that? That's Duncan's murder. Hell is murky. It's like she's in hell already. Fie, my lord, fie, a soldier and a fear? What need we fear? Who knows it when none can call our power to account? Do you see, now she's back in that scene where Macbeth was saying, I'm not going to go back there and put those daggers, and she's saying, you can't be afraid. And then she's back to the murder where she saw Duncan. Yet who would have thought the old man to have had so much blood in him? Remember when she went back up and she put the daggers back? The doctor, do you mark that? Listen to what she's saying. She's confessing. Lady Macbeth continues. The Thane of Fife had a wife. Where is she now? So now we know that Lady Macbeth knows that Macbeth had the Thane of Fife's wife and children and servants all slaughtered. And then here she's back to the hands. What will these hands ne'er be clean? And then back to Macbeth. No more of that. No more, my lord. You mar with all this, with this starting. You've got to put that false face on, she's saying. The doctor, go to. You have known what you should not. And she says, she has spoke what she should not. I am sure of that. Heaven knows what she knows. And Lady Macbeth again. Here's the smell of the blood still. All the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. Now your text says, oh, 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 but this would be, as the doctor says, oh, what a sigh is there. So this is more of a, oh, oh. She's crying from her soul here. And look at the irony where she had said, remember after Duncan's death, she'd said, all it takes is a little water clears us of this deed. Remember that Macbeth had said, well, all of Neptune's ocean wash this blood clean from my hands? No, rather the blood will of multitudinous oceans incarnadine. So you see that this is coming back to her. She's saying all the perfumes of Arabia will not sweeten this little hand. The gentlewoman says, I would not have such a heart in my bosom for the dignity of the whole body. The doctor, well, pray God be. This disease, the doctor says, is beyond my practice. I can't do anything for her. Yet I have known those who walked in their sleep who have died holily in their beds. I've known people who have gotten over this kind of mental disturbance, and they have been okay. Here's Lady Macbeth continuing to speak. Wash your hands, put on your nightgown. Look not so pale, I tell you yet again, Banquo is buried. He cannot come out of his grave. Now we see two things in that one. The first one, wash your hands, put on your nightgown. When was that? That was after Duncan's death. Now she's back to Banquo. I tell you yet again, Banquo is buried. He cannot come out on his grave. This is back to the banquet scene when Banquo was there in Macbeth's mind. The doctor, even so, look at what she's saying. Lady Macbeth, here she goes. To bed, to bed. There's knocking at the gate. Come, 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 come. Give me your hand. What's done cannot be undone. To bed, to bed, to bed. And now she's back to the murder of, after the murder of Duncan, when the knocking, and that was be Macduff and Lennox who had come to get Duncan, and they hear that knocking. The doctor says, will she go to bed now? Yes, she will. The doctor says, foul whisperings are abroad. Unnatural deeds do breed unnatural troubles. I want you to look at that line specifically. Unnatural deeds do breed unnatural troubles. We've talked about doing things against your own nature. Macbeth did that against his own nature. Remember in the equivocation scene, he decided, we will go no further in this, he says to Lady Macbeth. And so when she convinces him, she picks up the guilt for this. Now it's coming back out. The doctor says these unnatural deeds do breed unnatural troubles. Infected minds to their deaf pillows will discharge their secrets. So this unnatural deed that she did does breed, it causes unnatural troubles. And in your sleep, it will come out in your dreams, in sleepwalking. And you know that to be true too, don't you? When you have done something that you're not supposed to, or you know something you shouldn't, or you're very worried about something, you'll dream about it. It'll keep you awake. Those kinds of things in the sleep. The doctor says, more needs she the divine than the physician. I can't help her as a doctor. What she needs is God. She needs a divine help. At this point, this is beyond my medical ability. God forgive us all. Look after her. Remove from her the means of all annoyance and still keep eyes upon her. The means of all annoyance would be things with which she might hurt herself. Remove knives and anything around her with which she could commit suicide. He's essentially putting her on suicide watch here. So good night. My mind she has made it and amazed my sight. I think but dare not speak. I can't believe what I have heard. I can't believe what I have seen. And I've got to process all of this. I'm not going to say a word about it. Then they say good night and exit. Now we're going to go ahead and go into scene 2. This is very short. All of these scenes get shorter and shorter and shorter, so we're just going to move quickly through them because we're moving back and forth. And remember that we had Malcolm and Macduff in England, and we have Macbeth in Scotland. So this group in England, now they have General Seward, 10,000 men. They're going to begin moving towards Scotland. So the space between is going to get shorter and shorter and shorter as we move on with the play. So we hear a drum, and here comes some of the soldiers. Monteith, Caithness, we hadn't met them before. Angus we have, Lennox we have. This is where we get news. The English power is near, led on by Malcolm, his uncle Seward, and the good Macduff. So this is people in Scotland talking, saying that the guys from England are on their way. They're being led by Malcolm, and Seward's with them, and Macduff. Revenge is burn in them, for their dear causes would to the bleeding and the grim alarm excite the mortified man. So they are coming with revenge on their mind. They're coming after Macbeth. Angus says, near Burnham Wood shall we well meet them. That way they're coming. Now, they're going to meet up at Burnham Wood. Does that sound familiar? Where did you hear Burnham Wood before? It was in the predictions that the witches said, when they said, until Burnham Wood, marches up the hill toward Dunsinane. You'll be fine, Macbeth. So we know that Birnam Wood, when we hear that, oh, something's going to happen with that. Caitlin says, who knows if Donalbain be with him? Is Donalbain with him? Luna says, for certain, sir, he is not. He's definitely not with him. I have a file of all the gentry there is seaward son, and many unrough youths that even now protest their first of manhood. So there's a lot of young men there, but Donalbain is not one of them. What does the tyrant? Where is he? A great Dunsinane he strongly fortifies. Some say he's mad. Others that lesser hate him do call it valiant fury, but for certain he cannot buckle his distempered cause with the belt of rule. So right now Macbeth is battering down the hatches. He's getting ready for this battle. He's either called a madman, or he's some people say he's a brilliant soldier. And remember, when we met him, he was a brilliant soldier. Now does he feel his secret murders sticking on his hands? So the word is out. Maybe not outspoken so much in company, because that would be dangerous and you'd be next on Macbeth's list. But they do know now, the word is out, that Macbeth is guilty of all of these murders. Who shall then blame his pestered senses to recoil and start when all that is within him does condemn itself for being there? He himself is condemning himself. Well, march we on, and so it seems we make our way towards Birnam, and they're heading on. Scene 3, we are now in Dunsinane, and we see Macbeth. So we've been down here below Dunsinane, we've been in England, now we're actually in the castle here. Macbeth says, bring me no more reports, let them fly all. To Birnam Wood removed to Dunsinane, I cannot taint with fear. What's the boy Malcolm? Was he not born of woman? The spirits that know all mortal consequences have pronounced me thus. Fear not, Macbeth. No man that's born of woman shall even have power over thee. Then fly, false thanes, and mingle with the English epicures. The mind I sway by and the heart I bear shall never sag with doubt, nor shake with fear. So Macbeth is saying, he's just gotten the news that they're marching in his direction. And he's saying, I don't care. It doesn't matter to me because I'm safe. I was told that until Birnam Wood marches towards the castle, I'm not going to need to be fearful. And Malcolm, he's leading, so what? Isn't he born of a woman? I've been told, you know, and I believe these witches tell me that this is true. I believe that this is true. A servant comes in. Now Macbeth treats him badly. He's almost abusive, and he says, the devil damn thee black, thou cream-faced loon. Where goest thou, that goose look? And this service goes, there's 10,000. And he says, geese, villain? He's just picking at him. No soldiers, sir. Macbeth says, go prick thy face and overred thy fear, thou lily-livered boy. What soldiers? Patch, death of thy soul. Those linen cheeks of thine are counselors to fear. What soldiers? Wayface. And he's just calling him name after name after name. Macbeth in his this state that he's come into is so different from the Macbeth that we saw at the very beginning of the play. That Macbeth was powerful and strong and honorable, and this Macbeth is anything but. And what soldiers? Well, the English force is the answer. And Macbeth says, leave. And then he tells his assistant, Satan. Now, notice that sounds an awful lot like Satan. I'm sick at heart when I behold Satan, I say. This push will cheer me ever, or deceit me now, get off my way. I have lived long enough. My way of life has fallen into the seer, the yellow leaf, and that which should accompany old age, as honor, love, obedience, troops of friends, I must not look to have, but in their stead, curses, not loud, but deep, mouth honor, breath, which the poor heart would fain deny and dare not. He's saying, what you should have when you grow old is your friends about you, your family. Here I am in the yellow leaf stage of life. So if you think about autumn, yellow leaves are not dead leaves, they're not brown, but they're on their way. They're in the autumn of life. And he's saying, in that time I should have this, but I don't. What I have instead are curses. Not loud but deep. Mouth honor. People just are lip service. Breath, which the poor heart would fain deny and dare not. So I don't have any of that. Well, whose fault is that, right? Macbeth did this to himself. Satan comes in and says, what do you want? And he says, I want to know the news. Satan says that was what it was true. There are 10,000 men. Macbeth says, then I'll fight till my bones from my flesh be hacked. Give me my armor. Satan says, you don't need it yet. And he says, I want my armor. I'll put it on. Send out more horses and hang those that talk of fear. Give me mine armor. And then he says, how does thy patient, doctor? He's talking about Lady Macbeth. How is she? Now, we know that they have had a very close, loving relationship. We see these terms of endearment from the very beginning where he writes her the letter. Over and over, we see that they have a close relationship. But they have, as Lady Macbeth has dropped into some semi-madness, and Macbeth himself has that, their relationship has changed. The doctor says, not so sick, my lord, as she is troubled with thick coming fancies that keep her from her rest. And here we have that lack of sleep. You see that motif again. Macbeth says, you cure her of that. Canst thou not minister to a mind diseased? Pluck from the memory of a rooted sorrow, raise out the written troubles of the brain, and with some sweet, oblivious antidote, cleanse the stuffed bosom of that perilous stuff which weighs upon the heart. Can't you take care of all that, doctor? Can't you cure that sick mind? Can't you get rid of all that stuff that's weighing her down? And the doctor says, no, therein the patient must minister to himself. It's beyond me. Macbeth says, throw physic to the dog, I'll none of it. Physic meaning physician. Throw medicine, healing to the dog. I'm done. I'm done with you. He's asking again, come put my armor on. I'm ready to fight. He has lots of confidence here. You know, bring it on. He says, doctor, the thanes fly from me. All of my men are deserting me. My closest men, my thanes, are deserting me. And then he says, come, sir, dispatch if thou couldst. Doctor, cast the water of my land, find her disease, and purge it to a sound and pristine health. I would applaud thee to the very echo. If you could cure my wife, I'd be very grateful, and I would applaud you to the very end. Pull it off, I say. What rhubarb senna or what purgative drug would scour these English hence? You got anything that can cure me, this English force that's about ready to march on me? Have you heard of them? And he says, well, I sort of get it from the fact you're putting on armor. He says, my good lord, your royal preparation makes us hear something. The fact that you're getting ready for battle. He says, well, bring it again. Bring it on. I will not be afraid of death in vain till Burnham Forest come to Dunsinane. Back to those prophecies. Macbeth is putting everything in those prophecies. He feels so confident because they told him exactly what he wanted, and that is that he would survive. The doctor says, in an aside, were I from Dunsinane, away and clear, prophet again would hardly draw me here. In other words, nothing, if I could get away from here, nothing would draw me back. That takes us halfway through Act 5. We're now through Scene 3, and that's the end of this video.